Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. This is a battle between Kentucky Tavern, introduced in 1903, age 36 months, 80 proof, from Sazerac. That was $10.99 for that 1 liter bottle. Cents for that one. Correct that little problem there. All right. Versus Jim Beam, introduced in 1938. Also 80 proof, aged 48 months. So a 4-year aged bourbon versus a 3-year aged bourbon. Beam Suntory versus Sazerac. The big versus the not nearly as big. Now, I have even more exciting news. The Drunken One said he's going to send me some spicy. He told me 1 week ago, he's going to send me some spicy beef jerky. And I told him I would do a beer review with the spicy beef jerky. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Well, I think Kentucky Tavern is going to really give the Jim Beam a run for its money. And I think it's going to defeat Jim Beam. Happy Thanksgiving, Ronald. Thanks for all the great videos over the years, says CS 1992. Oh, you're welcome, and thanks for all your support over the years. It's going to be 7 years on Sunday, I think. 7 years since I started this video channel. 7th anniversary. Jim Beam. Now, Jim Beam, they have a nice metal. It's a metallic metal cap, where most companies have plastic now. Which one's better? I don't know. I think the metal looks nicer, but then you get that steel and it'll rust and things such as that. You might have a Jim Beam with a white cap, but they rebranded it or redesigned it with the black cap a few years ago. 2 years ago, maybe. Okay, all right. I have to go to the store and get some bread on a Thanksgiving morning. Well, that's okay. All right. Amber, gold. This one's a little darker than that one. Just a, now is that the, oh, that's Jim Beam. See, I didn't even know. Now remember the Barton, very old Barton, I was saying it did so poorly in competition. These glasses have a tendency to tumble. Be right back. The very old Barton did so poorly in competition, but on its own, it was all right. I drank a little bit yesterday, and on its own merits, it's not too bad. But in competition, it can't make it. All right, sorry about that little early morning mishap. Who Badi says, hello, Jay, great morning to you. Hello, and great morning to you. John and Neil, good morning, Ron. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving back to both of you guys. Okay, these are nice little snifters because they're the perfect size for tasting. You're not really consuming a whole lot of liquor, just fine little tasting glasses. I think they're 4 ounces each if you fill them to the very top, which, you know, you're not going to do that. Alberto says, where is Ron? I went to go, had to wipe up some little spillage. Okay, but I was going to say, I suppose that's the case with a lot of these beverages. On their own, they're fine, but you put them in competition, they bomb. And that's what happened to the Very Old Barton. That's why you're not going to see any more Very Old Barton. I'm going to finish off the bottle, and that's it. Jim Beam, what is it? Won most of the time, but I think it lost once. It's not the greatest thing, but then it's not horrible like people say, like, oh, Jim Beam, I hate that stuff. It's trash. It's not trash, and it would not be the second biggest selling bourbon. Well, you know, because Jack Daniels is #1, but they call it a Tennessee whiskey. It wouldn't be the #2 selling whiskey in America if it was trash. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, just because it's a big seller doesn't mean it's good. I realize that. I know. I'm just saying, if it was trash, it wouldn't be #2. Now, it could be ho-hum and be #2, because a lot of people like ho-hum food. I do a lot of road trips and I eat at different places, and most of the food is very bland. And I say, people like to eat bland food. Okay, fine. My prediction is that Jim Beam will win. Then again, I haven't tried the Kentucky Tavern yet. Alberto says, I see you. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, I had to get up and wipe this. I didn't want to have this liquor going everywhere, this whiskey. So these live events, you know, live television can be tricky. All right. Well, I think the Kentucky Tavern is going to have a spicier nose, a bold, and I don't mean harsh. I mean actually a bolder, more luxuriant flavor. But the Jim Beam, we know it has that unique cellar mold, greenwood character, which I picked up on. Okay, all right. Anyway, let's do this here at 6:03 a.m. Central Time, 7:03 Eastern, 4:03 California time. Okay, spicy, sweet, and aroma commonly associated with whiskey, as the U.S. government would say. My nose is a little... Everyone's sinuses in Louisiana are bad because of the humidity and the chemical plants, but I think it's the humidity more. Like, it's 45 degrees right now, but they said the humidity is 66%. That's still kind of high. And then you just feel wet and cold. I don't have the heater on. Still haven't run the heater yet. For this winter, you say fall. Yeah, well, we don't have much of a fall around here. We have summer and winter, more or less. See, I already think this is Jim Beam because it got that moss, that mold. And so we have a lot of mold and moss in southeastern Louisiana, and you smell it a lot. And so this smells like that. Okay. Although, I don't know, this is not a smell challenge, it's a taste challenge. Let's get to the taste then. I've already eaten the egg. It's not an omelet. I did not make an egg casserole that I made, okay? Which came out really nice. That Swiss cheese melted like a cap, like a brown cap on there. And I had the chopped up Spam, and I had all the yellow onions and the 2 large eggs. And I just blasted it with that broiler. So it was almost like an egg pie, right? And then I put the Louisiana brand hot sauce and the black pepper on it. And then I sopped it up, which was just a little oil really and some residue. Sopped it up with some brown bread and butter. Okay. And 3 cups of coffee and a vitamin C. Hoobity says, I'm up early for Thanksgiving Day out there in the West, the Pacific time zone. I see that. I love standard time. I hate daylight savings time. To me, daylight savings time stinks. People say, but it gets dark too early. No, it gets dark at the right time. You see, that's the actual time. The savings time is the pretend time. It's not supposed to be daylight at 9 o'clock at night in Louisiana in June, okay? And that's why people go to work all tired and everything, and it's dark till 7 a.m. It's stupid, in my opinion. That's me. Personal preference, right? Well, when it gets dark at night at 5:36, I'll start getting sleepy, and I don't stay up late. I'm off to bed. But then that's why I wake up at 2:45 a.m. All right. Well, they're not too different, but they are different. That I think I know already. Well, 3-year versus 4-year doesn't seem to make an appreciable difference, honestly. Now, which one's better? Which one is better? I'm going to say which one's better before I even call it. Oh, it's about the closest thing you could ever imagine. It's a virtual tie, but I would say this one on my left could be your right. I don't know how these things, they look, sometimes they'll look backwards to people, and sometimes they don't look backwards to people. I think this one is slightly, and I mean, it's almost not even worth mentioning, but it wins by a nose. Well, what does that mean then? Well, that means that Kentucky Tavern wins then, because if it's a virtual tie or essentially a tie, and one bottle is $13.99 and the other one's $10.99 for a liter. All right, $7.50, $1,000. Now, would you rather pay $10.99 for 1,000 liters, or $12 or $13.99 for 750 milliliters for 2 products that have almost an identical flavor, even though one's aged a year less? I guess you can figure out which one I'd pick every time. I was curious about the Kentucky Tavern because I kept hearing chatter over the over the airwaves. I heard chatter, intercepted transmissions coming out of Cambodia, and they said that Kentucky Tavern was like a hidden jewel. Now, given that this one won, which one is it? Good grief. I think it's Kentucky Tavern, but my confidence is not very strong, but it does seem to have a slight, like a toothpick, no, a sliver of a toothpick more wood than the other. And notice what I said, a slither of a toothpick more woodiness, charred wood than the other. Not even a whole toothpick more. So like I said, yeah, this one wins, but it's a toss-up. Honestly, it's like the teams battled it out all game, and one got a break and kicked a field goal and won the game. And then their fans are all in the other fans' face. We won, we won. It's like you barely won. Ah. Told you I didn't have any confidence. That's Jim Beam. Okay. Aging something 4 years makes a difference. A sliver of a toothpick's difference. Not a toothpick's difference, a sliver of a toothpick. Now, if you want to pay $3 or $4 more a bottle for a smaller bottle, okay, you want to pay $3 or $4 more for a smaller bottle of something that wins by a sliver of a toothpick. In other words, one of them is 100 and the other one's a 98 or 99. I'm not scoring them that way. I don't score liquor. I don't feel like I have the ability to do that. But that's how close it is. So you go ahead and pay that $3 extra a bottle for something that wins by the slightest margin, almost in some ways the smallest margin possible for it not to be a tie. So this would not take Kentucky Tavern down any, and I wouldn't even count it as a loss. Okay, so it's going to be essentially a tie. Considering all I said, like I don't have confidence, I can't really tell the difference. It's mostly a guess, and it's sort of like the Saints beating the Redskins in the unpatriotic football league, because if it wasn't for that bad call where they said the guy was committed intentional grounding, when really the quarterback, there was a confusion on the route, and the receiver wasn't where he was supposed to be, or the quarterback thought he was supposed to be there and he threw it out there and it wasn't intentional grounding. Had it not been for that, then Washington probably would have won. So that game really, as it developed, the whole game was more or less a tie. And I don't think anybody should have been screaming and hollering about the other team. You're sad, you're garbage, all that kind of stuff. There's no sense to that. It's like when Tulane beat Houston Saturday. I mean, Tulane went down. In that case, you could maybe get a little louder and get your hands up and wave your pom-poms, because Tulane was not supposed to win that game. And historically, the Houston Cougars have beaten Tulane very badly and embarrassed them in most cases. And their fans, they're from Texas, so they tend to be a little obnoxious and loud. Of course, your counter argument could be, oh, you're just taking up for Louisiana. I know how LSU fans can be. Yeah, you're right. You got a point. So maybe I shouldn't. But my experience with Houston Cougars fans is that they're that way. Nothing like Texas Longhorns fans, which I've never seen more appalling behavior in my life. Which is why it's so pleasing to see mediocrity reigning there these days. But anyway, so but that was a case where they were supposed to, kick Tulane around without mercy, and then Tulane beat them by 3 points. Oh, but you see, it was a great win for Tulane, and it was a disastrous loss for Houston. Now, 4 years ago, Tulane did the same thing in Houston, went to Houston and beat them. And I was there, and why the university got so angry, they fired the coach. He was fired not long after that. So that's an example of a little more of a differentiation. But But these two bourbons and like the Saints and the Redskins, they're so close that it's a virtual tie. So we're going to call it a tie for all intents and purposes. And I'm shocked, a little shocked, because, you know, I was touting Kentucky Tavern. You heard me. Oh, yeah, the great Kentucky Tavern. It's going to beat Jim Beam, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then Johnny Ely says, well, he thinks Jim Beam's going to win. Of course, he had to take into account he had never tried Kentucky Tavern, but Jim Beam did win by a hair. It wins on taste, barely. Essentially, it doesn't win, but it loses on value. The Kentucky Tavern is a much better value. Okay, so there you go. There's your answer. And when you think about it, which area of contention is more important? The flavor where you win by microparticles, or the price where you save $3 and you get a 1 liter bottle as opposed to a 750 milliliter bottle? I think that is a clear, now that's the clear cut victory there. That's the real victory, you see. The underdog wins in the value consideration. So I think this was a good exercise because it shows that you can buy a bargain brand, let's call it bourbon, and it can taste as good as the premium famous bourbon. Okay, now next, probably in 2 days, not necessarily, but probably in 2 days, we're going to put the Kentucky Tavern up against the Jim Beam Choice. Now that one, hey, now we're talking a 3-year bourbon versus a 5-year bourbon, which is charcoal filtered after barrel aging, which the Jim Beam company claimed was made it better than other products. And when they said other products, they were throwing that at Jack Daniels, because Jack Daniels always brags that they charcoal filter before the whiskey enters the barrel. So their claim was that it was better that way. But Jim Beam always says, hell, it ain't better that way. It's better to charcoal filter it after it comes out the barrel. Now, I didn't notice much difference, honestly. And I guess Jack Daniels won because Jim Beam Choice has been discontinued, and it died a death that was largely unnoticed. It faded away in obscurity. Even though when they introduced it in 1957, they made a huge push to tell you how great it was. And they tried for 40 years to get people to buy it, but nope, they could not defeat the giant. Jack Daniels stands supreme, and Jim Beam Choice is going. Except for these taste challenges, because I still got half a bottle left. Okay, all right, so fascinating to me. You might be laughing, but fascinating taste challenge to me. And if I didn't have self-control, I'd go run up there and get another. I'd rinse these glasses out, and I'd do Jim Beam Choice versus Kentucky Tavern right now for Thanksgiving extravaganza, but I'm not going to do it because I do have self-control. I got to reload. I got to reload a video review for beer. I was 23 seconds left to have it processed and post it, and then it had a browser failure. I said, "Look at this." Oh well, I'll reload it. It won't be any problem. It's about a Scottish style ale that was sent to me from Wisconsin called Slente, which I liked. Okay, that's it. It's over. This video is over.